beauty of sport is that it's full of surprises, and Roman Kreuziger delivered exactly that at the Amstel Gold Race. A little bit closer to home, we'll take a look at Black Caviar's half-brother being sold for $5 million and posing the question, amongst cycling's royal couples, whose offspring would you pay the most for? And the Target Healthy Living tips. Scott McGrory tells us which items of clothing you really need as we head towards winter. We also catch up with Charlie Pickering, the host of the project, and ask him, why on earth does he ride a bike and why is he so fastidious about it? And this weekend it's Liege, Bastogne-Liège. The doyen, the oldest of them all, can Simon Gerrans win the race? And we also look at your questions, courtesy of those that have been sent in to us. This is the Bike Lane and we're in the Bike Gallery. He's Wade Wallace, better known as Mr. Cycling Tips, and your Olympic Games bronze medalist, Scott McGrory, but that was from '88. You've also got a gold medal. Let's get into it. This is the topic where we asked you the question of what you wanted us to discuss, and we got a lot of responses and we want them to keep coming. We're going to go with one honourable mention to discuss team clothing, and then we're going to debate the question about Cadel Evans. So the first question was posed, if you're an amateur cyclist and you're wearing a pro kit, are you a douchebag? You can probably answer it best because you were a pro. When you were with Mapai... I
thought you were going to say I was a douchebag. Yeah, I was a pro, yeah.
Well, you might be that as well. But when you were with Mapai, what was your reaction when you saw that kit rolling down the road?
Well, look, my view on this has changed somewhat. I guess when I first turned professional, I thought that the riders trying to emulate the professionals by wearing, our kit were perhaps douchebags. But now that I look back, I feel that it's more about trying to be a part of the pro scene, trying to be a part of the sport. And I see them more as sports fans, and I'm fine with it.
What about you?
I see it in two parts. I see people's entry into the sport is usually by watching the Tour de France. They don't know what else to wear. That's what they would naturally go towards. That's what I went towards. I just said, what's everyone else wearing? And I bought what was on TV. And then maybe after a year or two, you should start to know that that's probably not the coolest thing to wear, right? Then you start going towards team kit. You want to be part of your own club. And then after you sort of go through that journey, you end up sort of paring back and maybe wearing like Assos or Rafa or Castelli.
And that's where those brands have flourished.
Yeah.
But what about in your time of actually, wearing various pro team kits? Because it wasn't very common in your day that an Australian was on a pro team.
No, it wasn't. And look, I was riding around in a bunch in Bendigo years ago in my full Mapai kit, had my name across the back of my jersey. The name was on my Colnago C40 as well. Been in the group for about 45 minutes, and the rider beside me said to me, so, how well do you know Scott?
Reasonably well.
Yeah. Jez Hunt had a story for me. He said he was at Cafe Racer and he was just sitting there minding his own business. Some guy comes up to him belittling him for wearing Lance Armstrong sunglasses. He says, where'd you go buy those, son? Jez says to me, he says, I didn't know what to say. Lance gave them to me on his private jet.
they were actually Lance Armstrong's sunglasses. I always find it difficult to make comment on this topic because I was the kid that at school hated casual clothes day, because I didn't have a single cool item of clothing in the wardrobe. So I wear whatever's comfortable, and it's not a team kit, I can assure you that. It's the equivalent of putting a Carlton jumper on to go down the park and have a kick of the football.
It's not acceptable in any sport,
no,
but not once you know.
The serious question that we do want to discuss was put to us by Travis. So Travis, you're the winner of the Champion Systems winter jacket, which is appropriate at this time of year, and it is about Cadel Evans. Why? First, we're going to split this into two. Firstly, why is Cadel Evans riding the Giro d'Italia?
Well, I think that Team BMC are trying to get some value for money because I think they see that he is unlikely to win the Tour de France again. So let's get him out there and get as much exposure from our former world champion and our former Tour champion as possible.
And he has said in classic Cadel Evans fashion that he's not going there for training, he's going there to race and he's going to throw everything at it. And this is where he really burst onto the scene 11 years ago when he got that pink jersey. What are your expectations from him?
He's hedging his bets. We haven't seen riders go back-to-back in a long time doing well at the Giro and at the Tour. And when he was world champion, he had a phenomenal year. He did well at the Giro. He didn't win it, but he did well. But he didn't go so well at the Tour. And I think, I hope it goes that well this year, but I don't think it is.
His form's not there. He's had no continuity since he won the Tour de France. Through illness, and he picked up a blood virus, etc., but he has had no continuity. And you ask any leading coach, and you coach at the VIS, the key thing, if you do 4 hours in a week, it's better to do 4 one-hour rides than 1 4-hour ride. It's that consistency, and he has not had that.
Well, should we look at the fact that since the unfortunate passing of his coach and mentor, Aldo Sassi, a couple of years ago, that was just before the World Championships that he won. He then led that form into the Tour de France, which he won, but it's now been a couple of years since the passing of Aldo, who wasn't just a coach, and a good one at that, he was also my coach back in the day, but he was such a good mentor, that father figure that we know that he never really had. So it's perhaps maybe that Aldo's not around anymore.
Well, fortunately, Aldo was there for the World Championships and passed away just before Cadel really made that big campaign to win the Tour, and I think he is missing him. The more important question is, come the Tour de France, the relationship between TJ Van Garderen and Cadel Evans. We saw recently at the Criterium International, Cadel Evans on his own blog made the reference to working for our young TJ. Was that condescending or was that supporting? I read it as Cadel protecting his position as the team leader. You're the little guy, I'm the big guy. There was a sign of insecurity in that.
I see it as condescending as well, but I also see TJ as very overrated.
Overrated?
Yeah, I think so. He can follow. He's showing he can follow, but I can't see any signs of him leading yet.
He's 25. He's 25 years of age. He's finished 5th in the Tour de France. His debut at the Tour de France, he was most aggressive on a day. He held the King of the Mountains jersey. He's still 25 years of age, and you're saying he's overrated?
Now. But he's got potential, there's no doubt about that. But, you know, and I think Cadel probably should step aside and support him, but I still don't think he's going to win a Tour anytime soon.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But look, I think we talk about him being overrated or not. I think Cadel really needs to think about perhaps starting to look at TJ Van Garderen in a positive way, because I think he can actually give so much experience and help knowledge towards TJ's, you know, look at perhaps going to win a Tour. Maybe not this year, I don't think that will happen, but in the next couple of years, it certainly has the potential.
What has brought Cadel Evans undone, I go back to it again, is the lack of continuity in his training. And he's now 36 years of age. He is past his best. He's still good, but he is past his best. And I think that he was past his best when he won the Tour, but he just had a lot of other elements around him that were missing when he was at Lotto that weren't there. So Travis, you're the winner of the Champion Systems winter jacket. Cadel Evans, a big contentious issue, it always is. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, particularly about that line of our young TJ. Was it supportive or was it condescending? Can't wait to read what you've got to say. The Amstel Gold Race was run and won on the weekend, with Roman Kreuziger going out the winner. And in any preview that I read, including the preview that we did on this show, not a single mention of his name. Yet he managed to deliver and he provided the big surprise. And Peter Sagan, well, he has finished his spring campaign. The 23-year-old's engine, for now at least, is cooked. Scott Kreuziger, he's still only 26. He's been top 10 at the Tour de France. He's won Romandie, he's won the Tour de Suisse. Had people written him off too soon?
Oh, for sure. I think, and we are guilty of that as well. You know, he's had a couple of team changes, trying to find the right format and the right combination of riders around him, and perhaps the right races to target. And we were looking at him as a potential Grand Tour winner a couple of years ago. That seems to have faded, but now he pops up and wins a Classic, which is an incredible result.
Or maybe, Wade, like TJ Van Garderen, and he was just overrated earlier on.
It could be.
Maybe.
We'll see.
We'll find out. His ride was, I think the rest of the peloton underestimated him as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the course change helped him get that victory as well, with adding that extra lap of 20 kilometres at the end. That allowed him to get a bit of a gap. The peloton a bit more hesitant, looking at the big favourites to do all the chasing. But I'll tell you what, his ability towards the end there, he was only 22 seconds slower going up the climb than Gilbert. And I think it was 14 seconds was the time gap at 1K to go. It was 22 by the end, so then he lengthened that gap towards the end there. That's very strong.
And there's a real love growing for cyclocross in Australia at the moment, and Kreuziger has got a small cyclocross connection. He was a silver medalist at the Junior Worlds, and his dad was Junior World Cyclocross champion as well. Matt Keenan, obscure fact number one for this episode. There you go. What about the rivalry between Simon Gerrans and Alejandro Valverde? It bubbles and bubbles and bubbles.
Just keeps going, doesn't it? It's fantastic. And I think
Gerrans... Good cop, bad cop.
Well, hard done by in the end. You know, it wasn't the two-up sprint that we may have seen, that we've seen at Wallunger Hill, and also Paris-Nice. We saw, you know, Valverde and Gerrans going for it as well. Valverde's had the better of him each time, but I think Simon should have got over the top of him and picked up second. He just got boxed in the end.
And to me, this is good versus evil. This is a rivalry that, because Valverde's been sanctioned, he never admitted it. He has a stain against him in my head. He doesn't redeem himself by coming in where he left off, and that's where I see him doing. And
I understand that, but I love watching Valverde race. And it feels like the girlfriend that cheats on you, but you keep going back because the sex is so good. And that is Alejandro Valverde. I love watching him race.
I don't get that.
I'm on my own?
No.
Okay.
No.
Philippe Gilbert, the world champion, is back. He was fifth, but he's back.
Yeah. Oh, incredible finish as well, wasn't it? And look, Simon Gerrans, I was proud. We were commentating it, and I was really proud of the way that, when Gilbert put the smack down on the Cowberg the last time. As we saw at the World Championships last year, no one could follow him. This time, Simon Gerrans could. It was also a very good ride by Valverde to come across to him as well. But it's good to see the rainbow jersey up there, but only second best on the climb. Kreuziger was away, but in the minor placings in the end for him, but still a fantastic performance. He's so good to watch.
And at the other end, why did Andy Schleck even bother starting? If he's going to come to such a big race that his brother has won in the past...
Money. Forced to be on the start line.
Yeah?
Yeah, has to. He has to do these races now. He's getting paid a lot of money. There's a responsibility for his sponsors, and the team are putting the pressure on him to turn up to these races. But it continues to paint him in a really bad light because he's so underperformed.
Yeah. He's like a kid that's lost his teddy bear without Frank going to the races with him. He needs his brother back.
He doesn't even look like he's trying.
He's right into the back of the peloton sulking. He is too good to be behaving in the manner that he is. I hope he gets it back together because he is great to watch race, but don't keep going around in that sort of manner. It's not working for anybody, your team or yourself.
Before Amstel, he even put it out there in the press that he thinks that his recovery and his comeback won't actually be successful until next season. But then still lines up with that attitude. And he's gone into the race knowing that he's under form, not going very well. In a race like Amstel Gold Race, any of the classics, you can't go in with that kind of approach.
Well, you're going well on the tipping because you got second and third with Valverde and Gerrans. You were going okay last week with Nicky Terpstra. I'm yet to score a point. So when it comes to the Liege preview, I'm getting a priority draft pick and I'm going first. As for you, what do you make of the Gerrans-Valverde rivalry? And despite all of Valverde's offences, do you still enjoy watching him race like I do? Okay, admittedly, this one is a little off topic, but the fact that Black Caviar's half-brother was sold for $5 million, it really caught my attention. So I thought we'd take a look at some of cycling's royal offspring. We've got famous father-sons like Axel and Eddie Merckx. There's Chris Sutton, who's racing. His father Gary was a world champion. There's a pretty long list. And there's also Kevin Nichols and Kate Nichols, his daughter, Olympic Games gold medalist, and she represented Australia as well. But let's look through some of the couples that have had children and how much you would potentially pay for their offspring if they were actually horses. At the moment, the most value is on Taylor Phinney. Mum Olympic gold medalist. His father, Davis Phinney, a Tour de France stage winner. He's valued. We're going to put him on the market at $1.5 million. He's paid that across 3 years.
Highest neo-professional ever, €500,000 a year for 3 years.
Some of the royal couples in Australian cycling. Simon Gerrans, we all know his CV. His wife, Rana Gerrans, they have 2 children. Former junior world champion in the 500-metre time trial on the track. Jeremy Hunt, who got glasses from Lance Armstrong. He has a child now with Narelle Peterson, who was a former junior world champion in the individual pursuit. Yeah. And what about the Baileys or the Kirstens? Not the Kirstens, the Perkins. Shane Perkins is married to Ryan Bailey's sister, Christine Perkins, who herself represented Australia at World Championships, and they have 2 children. Or then there's Kath and Bradley Wiggins, because Kath represented Great Britain at the World Championships as well. Who wants to take a bid? Who's going to make you the most money?
I'm going to go for, this is a little bit off because you probably might look at Brad Wiggins as the current Tour de France champion and maybe he would be worth the most amount of money, but I'm going to go with a rider that I've actually worked with and coached and trained in Shane Perkins, along with Christine Perkins. The fact that let's go away from the road racing scene and think about the Japanese Kirin scene. There's so much money over there in Japan, and the most expensive, the wealthiest cyclists in the world aren't the ones we know. They're names that I don't even know. They're Japanese riders. They turn up to races in Lamborghinis and Ferraris.
So it's right up the Black Caviar angle because it's all about the gambling. And I would imagine that if there was no gambling on horse racing, it would be as popular as equestrian. So you're chasing the money. You're chasing the money. No.
Yeah, I would be. I'll be the two sprinters, Christine and Shane Perkins, their offspring, going over to Japan, perhaps becoming nationalised as Japanese, and then racing the full Japanese Kirin season over 10, 15 years. They'll be making millions of money.
Wait.
Millions of dollars.
You know, Simon Gerrans and Rana, both of them could be, anything if they weren't cyclists, or and you just know that the kids would be well behaved as well. So I'd go for them.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm going to go with Wiggins.
And I know what you're saying between the lines there.
Brad Wiggins, because he's got a proven bloodline. His father, Gary Wiggins, represented Australia at World Championships. The wife brings the level-headedness into it as well. So that's where I'm headed. We've probably missed a few. There might be others out there that have got, well, famous combinations between them. So let us know who they might be. With the weather slowly fading away from autumn towards winter, in this week's Target Healthy Living Tips, Scott and Wade take us through a few of the essential clothing items. Scott?
Well, Matt, with the change of conditions coming and now a lot more rain, a lot more cold conditions, then we've got to look at a different type of clothing situation, and two of the items that I see as an absolute must: the long sleeve rain jacket, waterproof. This is from Gore. It's an old one. You've already mentioned earlier today, but this is quite an old-fashioned one. But these are from my wardrobe at home. The old reliable long sleeve, but then the vest. This one's a bit more modern. It's a raffle one, but when the conditions are the way they are, you do not go out for a ride without some sort of vest.
So you bring both of these with you?
Sometimes I do. Normally I wouldn't. It's one or the other. You've got to decide how bad the conditions are. Weather radar, of course, it's perfect for us. We know if we're going to be going out into the rain or not. The vest is for the surprise, and also for when you're climbing. If you're going to go out into the hills, make sure you take a vest with you, because you'll be sweating on the way up, obviously. Cold conditions going down the other side, you probably will get a chill, so you need to put another layer on over the top.
So why wouldn't you just bring this then? Then you're covered for everything.
Too much sweat. I don't like the long sleeve rain jacket for the entire ride. Once you get it on and you start to sweat too much, then you really need to leave it on all the way to the finish, otherwise you will get a chill.
Yeah. My two favorite products, these Defeat gloves. Every single season I buy a set of these. They're about $25. I think the merino wool, they have these little grippers on this side, and they're good down to about 5 degrees. I absolutely love them. And they do the fluoro yellow booties and gloves as well.
Well, you know that you ride in the city quite a bit, but I'm up in the country, mate, so I need something a little bit more substantial for my fingers.
I even use these in Canada. These are good for anything. The other thing I would not leave home without is a merino base layer. The merino base layer, I don't know if it matters what type of merino. I've never actually noticed the difference, but these things are phenomenal. I wouldn't wear anything but. You just put it underneath, and it comes out dry. You don't sweat. It's amazing stuff.
Now, when you are coming to a coffee shop and you want to stop, as we all do, and have a coffee or a muffin, with the weather changing, perhaps go inside rather than stay outside, but that means perhaps also taking a layer of clothing off so that when you do come back out into the cold conditions, you can put the jacket back on for the ride home.
It's critical to make sure you're dressed appropriately so you do avoid getting sick, and it is a famous cliche, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So make sure you dress appropriately and take some warm clothing out with you as it starts to get a little cooler. You might know him as the host of The Project. He's one of Australia's leading stand-up comedians, but Charlie Pickering is an avid cyclist. Let's catch up with him and find out why he rides a bike and a little bit about the relationship between the mainstream media and those pesky cyclists on the road. How was it that you ended up getting into cycling?
It's funny, that what got me back on a bike, I was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival doing my first ever show there. And Edinburgh's a nightmare to get around. It's just tough, and I was on foot, and I was just knackered walking around the whole time. And there was a guy selling a bike at the side of the road for 40 quid. It was clearly a stolen bike, but I didn't steal it. So I was like,
it was a good price.
40 quid was it was a shit bike, but it was it was at the time it's what I could afford. And I got this bike, and so I just started riding around Edinburgh, and I'd be doing my show at like 9 o'clock at night, and then I'd do about 7 gigs up to about 4 in the morning and get a bit. So I had to go all over town, and in 3 weeks I got super fit, because Edinburgh's all hills like this, and a lot of cobbles as well. And so I was just riding around everywhere, and I was like, it instantly reminded me of being a kid riding a bike, and that sense of freedom. And so I got back to Australia, and I was like, right, I got to get a bike, I got to get riding again, and so I got a Marzi single speed and just started commuting around on that. And then that year I read an article about Paris-Roubaix, and then I just started watching watching old clips of Paris-Roubaix on YouTube. Yeah. And then it all came together when I watched you know the movie Sunday in Hell?
From 1976.
With, is it Dvorak who...
Dvorak didn't win.
No, that's right, but it's following him like he's going to, and it's
Martin.
yeah. And I just watched that, and it had everything. Like the characters, the bikes were beautiful, and a sense of history about it, the way it looked and everything. It was like, and after that, I was completely hooked, and I was like, this, like Paris-Roubaix just became this like, just as a test. I just got so into it. I hadn't really connected with a sporting event like that before, like just, you know, in a theoretical basis. And I just decided then, I was like, right, I want to go and do that one day. That's and so I've got to do a lot of kilometres, and I've got to work really hard. And the thing is, I just haven't had time to go and do it yet. But that's sort of my cycling goal, is to go and do that.
We'll get a little bit more from Charlie Pickering next week as he tells us what he had to do to earn respect on a bunch ride, and then what race it was that tipped him over the edge that caused him to fall in love with the bikes. This weekend sees the final of the big spring classics, with the oldest of them all, the Doyenne Liège-Bastogne-Liège, now in its 99th edition, and it's the toughest of them all as well. Scott, what is it that makes this one so hard and so special and so revered?
Well, it is the one where we finally get to see a lot of the Grand Tour contenders come out to play. This year we know that some of them won't be on the start line, unfortunately, but in previous editions they really have come out to show and test their form. You know, we saw some of the riders in the last couple of years as well trying it at Amstel Gold Race, but Liège is the big one for the climbers of the peloton.
And just to show what else they're testing, 7 out of 10 of the past winners of Liège-Bastogne-Liège have been, you know, done for drug suspension.
Testing of a different kind.
Yeah,
not just testing the form then.
It's got to be a hard race if that's the case.
That's plenty of evidence that it's a hard race. So we're going to go through the tips, and I'm getting the priority pick because I'm at the bottom of the table. But please keep in mind, we're giving these tips before watching Flèche Wallonne, which is a great form guide. Nonetheless, I'm going to go with Philippe Gilbert. The world champion is back. He showed his form at the Amstel Gold Race, and he's got the home ground advantage. In football terms, he'd be wearing the coloured shorts. He grew up at the bottom of one of the most famous climbs of the race, the Côte de Saint-Nicolas. He's won it in the past. He is hell-bent on winning it once again. And I'm going to go with one of the local favourites. You can't go past him. He rides criteriums down at St Kilda every now and then, Simon Gerrans.
So he'd be good on the climbs then in Liège.
Yeah, of course.
I
mean, he grew up in Mansfield. Yeah. He spent plenty of time up Mount Buller. He was so good at Amstel Gold Race. And as he showed last year, when he beat Cancellara and Milan San Remo, the guys that are good enough to climb with him, not many of them are going to beat him in a sprint. So I'm locking in Gilbert and Gerrans. You have to wait. You go last because you're leading the tipping competition.
I'd back Gerrans way before I'd back Gilbert right now. But since you've already picked both of them, I'm going to go with Hejadal.
You picked Hejadal for the Tour of Flanders, didn't you? And he wasn't actually racing.
You picked him for the
Hejadal's for the Ardennes, not for the Cobble Classics. Wouldn't back him.
You'd pick Ryder for the St Kilda Club Crit as well, wouldn't you?
Oh, you'd go all right.
You get two. Who else have you got?
So I'm going to be looking out for Kotowski. Kotowski at the Tour of Flanders, he was incredibly strong. He was never on my radar before that. And then yesterday at Amstel Gold, he came up with a 4th place. So I'm going to tip him for 2nd.
Okay, well I'm going to go for Gerrans' arch rival, the one that we're building up as his arch rival, Alejandro Valverde. He was certainly in the mix, 2nd at Amstel, and I think he'll be on form for Liège. And a rider that really wants to get something out of this week now that he had the injury or the crash that took him out in Amstel is Joachim Rodriguez. I think he's really going to want to do something in Liège.
If Valverde does win, after I've had the opportunity to pick him first, I really will feel like I've been cheated on. I really will. As for you, who do you think is going to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège? I'm tipping a lot of support for Simon Gerrans, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you say. Who will it be? Gerrans, Gilbert? They're my 2 tips. Who are yours? Well, gentlemen, that's it for this week's edition of The Bike Lane. But finally, thanks to Wade, you're the most technically savvy of all of us. We're on Facebook now and we're on Twitter. It's not too hard to get on there, but we left it up to you. So come and join us on those 2 pages and follow what's happening on the show. Plus, keep the comments coming on the website, because again next week in the hot topic, your topic, we're going to choose one to debate. We'll have an honourable mention as well, and there's the Champion Systems jersey to give away. As for what's coming up for the remainder of the week, it's anticipation as we look to see whether Simon Gerrans can get Liège-Bastogne-Liège or will Valverde cheat on us once again and steal the win.